ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between. Welcome to another episode of the Chaps Chat Cats, a part of the Hoops Crew Media Network. My name is Jake, and I'm joined by Sambo and Johnny. How are you, chaps?
Good.
Yeah, you know what? I'm good. I'm well.
Fantastic.
The sun will come out tomorrow. On the show tonight, the Cats v Giants, round 11 recap. We're going to get into that. But chaps, there's a lot of other stuff to discuss too, as we dive into just how the Cats can blow up their 2024 season. We're going to talk 2025 trade destinations for Tom Stewart. Lot to dive into there. We're also going to hit up, will the Phillies ever call Mitch Hardy up from AAA ball? He's hitting really well. 300 in the minors. You've just got to, come on, let's get him up to the bigs. And finally, did Jack Henry's cameo on Taylor Swift's latest album come at a cost of form? Going to dive into all of that on the show tonight. And of course, we couldn't do any of it without our glorious sponsor, Valhalla Brewing, the nectar of the gods. If you're in the CBD, make sure you check out the tap room. CBD of Geelong, of course. There's only one town that matters on this podcast, G-Town, am I right? So make sure you check out the tap room. If you're in North Geelong, check out the brew hall, Valhalla Brewing. We massively appreciate their support of the podcast. After we get done talking all of that I was just talking about, we're going to go into the extended part of the show, which is for our Patreon subscribers. And we are going to be doing the first of our Chaps Chat Stats sections. We're going to be talking about Cats by quarter in 2024, breaking down quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, quarter four, etc., and looking for some patterns there. So if you want to hear that part of the show, if you want to watch that part of the show, go on over, hit up the Hoops Crew Patreon channel, start your 7-day free trial today. All right, let's get into it, chaps. We've got to talk about this, the game, Cats v Giants. I'll run us through a quick recap of the match. So things started out, I couldn't log into my KO account, I managed to for the first quarter, got the first quarter in, looking pretty decent. Then as the Cats faded across the second quarter, so too did my visual coverage of the game as the app continued to freeze. I listened to the second half of this on the radio, chaps. Great call on, I think it was Triple M that I listened to. The Cats were in this at quarter time, but they were kicking with a high degree of efficiency, 5 straight to 2-4. So maybe some alarm bells there early. The Giants really capitalized in the second quarter. That was where the game, in a lot of respects, was won and lost. They kicked 6 goals, 5 to Geelong's 1 goal, 2 to take a 57-38 lead. The fact that they then got the opening 2 goals of the third quarter really pushed it out. They'd only kick 1 more for the game. After Jesse Hogan's goal, after 9 minutes in the third quarter, they'd kick 1 more goal, which unfortunately was the final one of the game. And in between times, the Cats kicked 1 to Jeremy Cameron, 2 to Shannon Neal, another through at third to Tom Hawkins, a 4th to Tyson Stengel, a 5th to Tyson Stengel. 5 goals in a row for the Cats to actually hit the front for a short moment. Unfortunately, couldn't land the knockout blow. Toby Green does smug Toby Green things and kicks an absolutely bullshit winner. Chaps, flick to you. Thoughts and takeaways from this game as it pertains to generalities to start with.
Do you want to go first, John?
Sure, I'll go first. It was, as you said, it was a really positive start by the Cats, looking on top, looking good. Midfield were playing really well, like the young brigade in that midfield were looking on top early. Conway's wasn't dominating the ruck, but he's still competing well enough. And I was very buoyed, very positive, going, oh yes, this is brilliant. 5 goals straight. Giants kicked 2, 3. The only real worry was when College Chesney kicked a goal. I was like, "Oh, shit. Whenever he kicks a goal, we're in trouble." And that trouble came true in that second quarter. That is becoming a bit of a worrying trend. It's that one quarter where the Cats fairly drop off relatively quickly and pretty emphatically as well. Like, I think it was like 28 or 30 points to 6 in that second quarter. Doesn't help going into win games, and it didn't really go according to plan. But the third quarter was much better. They came out, had a bit more of a fight, had a bit more of a go, got themselves back in the game. But as we've seen over the last 4 weeks, 41-8 in the second. Yes, that is a big difference. But as we've seen in the last 4 weeks, these big periods of play where the Cats just can't get the hands on the ball, be it through the ruck or midfield or mainly just through a lot of skill error. It's the main issue that I'm seeing at the moment is getting the ball out of defence, moving it along the wing really well, inside midfield really well, and then it's either the last kick or coming out of defence. It's a bit of a scrub kick, and there was a lot of times when the kick going into another player was just either off the boot a little bit, too high a bit, just put the Giants players into the game, able to contest and not be able to take those marks that they normally would. Um, but apart from that, apart from that second quarter, it was a really good game. Good to see the young guys really starting to find some form. But it's painful to see. It's painful to watch. It's frustrating to watch. But at the end of the day, it's a young midfield that we've got. We've got Tanner Braun, we've got Max Holmes, Tom Atkins, who's
Jack Clark.
not really young, but he's still young in experience to other players on oppositions. Jai Clark. Who else is in it? It's such a
Well,
young midfield that's
and
got to be 4 quarters, and they're just not at the moment.
and Atkins gets forced into the back 50.
Yeah,
When those other guys are playing in midfield, which I don't know. To me, it kind of feels like he cops the raw end of the stick a little bit in that equation. I feel like he's been one of our most reliable inside mids the last 2 seasons, and he sort of gets just handballed back into the back 50.
he should get moved
Sambo,
inside this week, I reckon. No
you'd
Clark,
hope so with who's been suspended.
no Clark, no
Yeah.
Blitz. Still no Danger by the sounds of it. It sounds like he's ready
There's
to
plenty
go,
of
but they're
danger.
gonna hold him back. Plenty of danger.
So, I get what you mean, Johnny. Like, there's positives, and then there's it's a bit of a roller coaster at times with a young and transitioning sort of team. And I know people will be like, "Oh, they're not that young." Well, there is plenty of youth in there. Sambo, your sort of general opening salvo. What are your sort of thoughts?
Well, I mean,
Takes?
John, your recap, and then John's sort of summations have summed it up pretty well. Like the way the game kind of felt in a lot of ways. I guess I wanted to speak more generally and just kind of go. It was pretty tough to watch, like John said. Like I said to you guys after the game, I was like, I'm really glad we're not recording right now. And I'm glad I don't have access to Twitter because I'd be no better than anyone else on Twitter that's falling into a heap. But I'm really glad that I have those sort of usually at least 24 to 48 hours before we really have to come on the pod and talk about it. And so the really like I don't know BS answer is I've been feeling really grateful the last day or so, just for the Geelong Cats. Like this is it's a Geelong Cats podcast, so I know I speak to people that aren't gonna sort of like have a go at me about this. But in my opinion, it's not only one of the best clubs in the AFL. I think it is the best club in sport, and we all get to be fans of them. And I suppose the thing that I was really thinking was, are we fans of the club, or are we fans of victories? And the answer for me is I'm a fan of the club, regardless of what happens. And the victories are you enjoy the victories because your club's getting the victories. We shouldn't have this weight of expectation of like, and that's what it feels sometimes. Like you football team, you have to win. You have to get victories to earn my love. And it's just not that way. It's through thick and thin, and I'm just really grateful for all the memories that this club's given us. The legends that it has spawned, the pretty incomparable success through adversity that they've achieved. The sort of waves that they've made with the innovations of how to go about the list management and how to play the actual game of football. It's an absolutely phenomenal football club and a sporting club, and achievements of organization and and physicality all combined into
Mm.
one. And I said through thick and thin, and I guess the last thing really is it doesn't feel that thin to me at the moment. Like, as a few people have pointed out,
Last,
three
yeah.
three 7 wins, and then we've had 3 really close wins. Losses, sorry, that we could have
Mm.
stolen.
Yeah.
The Suns game was,
Suns game's the outlier.
it was a freak. It was an anomaly, and it was a bit, as I've
Mm.
said before, it reminded me a bit of the Buddy Milestone game against Sydney, where it was just like, just didn't feel like we were ever turning up with a chance.
Yeah.
That one, the dungeon master had already decided the fates on that one. The party wasn't getting out of there. And so apart from that one, like that quarter was shocking. And there was some particular moments where obviously Giants played really well. Obviously we did some poor things, but then there was that other layer of it where you're just like, how does this happen? Like a Giants player sort of getting held onto out of the middle, desperately soccers it off the ground under pressure with absolutely
Mm.
no thought of where it's going. Like it's just a complete instinctive, and it just like rockets through the air and hits their like forward perfectly in stride on a lead, as if he'd just done it. And you just, I messaged at least you guys going, I hate that shit. I hate watching it and going, like there's nothing. What can you do tactically against that? Against a
Not much.
absolutely just
Mm.
perler freak soccer that just hits that guy as if, and maybe it was. I was gonna say as if it was a planned play. Maybe it was, but that quarter just felt untenable.
It
And so beyond the result and beyond that quarter, I was really proud of how the team was able to fight back in. And I know it doesn't help a lot of people that, really want those wins and are going, oh, we keep leaving it too late. Blah, blah, blah. We push and come back and it's too late. Better than capitulating and just not even having a fight and
yeah.
going down like the Suns game every week. Like, is that what we'd rather?
Mm.
Oh, don't come back too late. Well, I'll take it, to be honest.
Yeah.
If we can almost steal that game that went against us for about almost 50% of the game, completely up against it, and we could
Mm.
have almost stolen it, and in fact probably should have stolen it. I think that's the thing that
Yeah.
probably, not to waffle, but the thing that probably reopens the wound that it was already starting to close in that game, is that it felt like for a bit there, it was destined for us to come back. We actually did come back with enough time, and
Yeah.
it wasn't until there was a bit. It was pretty early actually. There was about 8 minutes left, and I went,
Yeah.
I don't think we can do this. And the 8 minutes is plenty of time, but it just kind of
He's
went,
just got that sense of
yeah. And
the
like I
game.
think, it's and it's worthwhile. And what we're here to do, I suppose, is not to look at it and go, oh, we weren't good enough, but why we weren't good enough. Um,
And
And
the
I
good
have
thing
thoughts
about
on that, and I won't get into all of them now because obviously we'll have this as an ongoing discussion, not a monologue. But yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I was pretty filthy during the game, at the opposition,
oh
at the
yes,
umpires, at the universe.
as we
But
do, as you do
yeah,
as footy fans, like you
yeah,
obviously gonna get frustrated. You're gonna get
and it
pissed off. But
stuck with me longer than normal. But I think that's what I identified just before, is that like I think the fact that it didn't feel like, oh, we almost came back. It actually ended up feeling like we were robbed. and so it was weird. It's kind of like you had all of it. You had a flogging, too late comeback, and also a robbery, all in one game.
Yeah. And that's the other part that's probably hits the guts the hardest as well, is that they had so many opportunities to win this game as well. Like the game against Melbourne, game against Port, game against the Giants. They've had plenty of opportunities to get victories. It's not like we didn't have a lack of opportunities going forward. We didn't have enough clearances during the game, as much as people say, they get flogged in the clearances. At the end of the game, the clearances are basically even. We had we've got the chances, we're just unable to take those chances at the moment, and that's including the likes of Cameron, Hawkins, even Stengel sometimes, Close Holmes, all these players. They're getting the opportunities, and either we just can't get the ball to the right player in the right position because of the opposition's pressure, or just
Mm.
a bad kick at goal. But I think that's one of the most frustrating parts is we're getting the chances to win it. We're just not taking those chances when it matters the most. And
Yeah, which is one of the
Yeah.
elements I'd
And
like to get into if you've got a, yeah, if we can get into that in a bit, Jake. But you go with what you were thinking of.
I was just going to say, some of the areas that you lads have touched on are important to. I guess I've got a couple of little thoughts to add. Part of it is, I logged out of Twitter for the majority of the last probably 2.5 days. I just jumped off. It was, and the thing is, there was different people, and I've get this response sometimes on Twitter when I guess I'm tweeting stuff that maybe goes against the flow of the conversation that's unfolding there about players, who's in form, who's out of form, who should be dropped, or whatever it might be. And they say, well, aren't we? Are we not allowed? At what point are we allowed to criticize this team? At what point people should be allowed to vent? I would hate for anyone to ever think that anything I say on this podcast or on our Twitter is in some way saying other people are not allowed to feel or express what they feel they need to think and express and vent. I get it. Some people, they need to vent. But I would just put a hard line and say that's not what we are ever going to do on this podcast. If you are actually coming looking for us to say this player's got to be delisted, Stanley should never play again. Like, it's just not what this is about. And it's totally fine because there's plenty of places on the internet where you'll find that sort of stuff. It's just not what's happening here. And that's no judgment against you, but it's not what we do. So I just wanted to get that out there. There's nothing, I'm not trying to stop anyone criticizing anybody. And you will never find anyone who will stop you criticizing anybody. Like, you're allowed to. It's you're free to say what you want. The fact that we don't choose to engage with footy that way on the pod, like as you said, you were gutted. I was gutted. I was crushed.
yeah,
I was disappointed, frustrated, pretty upset about the result. It's not fun, but there's good stories to come out of it. But we'll talk about that, I think, at the back end of the show. I want to talk about some of the positives, like individually with players, when we get to our votes and that sort of thing. But I would like to dive into some of the specifics about what you chaps are seeing in regards to why these games have these moments where we really get swept aside. What are the specifics about all that? So I want to hand pass this one back to you, Sambo, because it sounds like you've got a sort of locked and loaded thought that you wanted to dive into. But my last little thing on the generalities of it is, and it goes with what Sam's been saying about like this club, what we've achieved, what they've achieved, what we've been privileged to witness, is that I really think, and I've been to a couple of home games this year, and there's a vibe there at KP sometimes when a game starts slow, when the Cats start slow, and the crowd is dead. And they build loud through frustration. And then when the game finally turns, the crowd comes alive. I think we all as fans need to remember that this is a very different team to the one that won the 3 flags, and they have provided something for us to get excited about for the last like 15, 17, 16, whatever years. At times, I think we've got to start trying to be that fire starter. Sometimes this crowd is, I think we should be, my opinion of what the environment should be like at KP from first bounce is an absolutely ferocious environment that no one ever wants to come and play. Teams should fear coming to play there. And at the moment, when we start slow, it's a graveyard. Once we get up and about on the field, the crowd gets real loud. So I don't know. Let's I think as fans have a think about that. How can we provide an environment? Because you can see it once the crowd lifts, some of these young guys find an extra gear.
Mm.
And it's
Yeah.
specifically, I think, the younger guys, your Dempseys and Clarks, etc., where suddenly it's double and triple efforts when the crowd's up and about. So we can have an impact. So I'd love to hear us loud from first bounce. But anyway, Sambo, that was just an aside. What are you thinking in terms of what you see happening that's either losing us the games or putting us in the hole to start with? Like, what's sticking out to you that's not working at the moment?
Well, there's a lot of things. The thing I was thinking about was
Mm.
very late in the game. The thing I was thinking about is more what didn't win us the game. And it's sort of to do with, Johnny was talking about us not taking those chances, and I was just thinking specifically why we had so much pressure. And like, GWS's defense has been lauded by a lot of people and their coach. And Aaliyah was, did some really good things and all that, and that is all true. But I think the simple fact of it is because I didn't rewatch the whole game, I'll be honest, but I did rewatch the last quarter. Um, because this is something that I was confused about. I was interested to know. I was like, how did we get 20 plus inside 50s with Cameron, Stengel, Hawkins, Oliver Henry, all these guys up there and not convert? And it was really just, and I don't want to blame individual players, and I don't want to sort of act like I'm going, see, this is, young players are no good. But it really is, we got some young players out there. And that last disposal inside 50 in that last quarter when the pressure was on and suddenly we're getting desperate, we had a whole quarter to do it.
Mm.
We had a whole quarter to use that work that we'd done. And we just sort of let the time slip away because that last disposal wasn't a bad kick, wasn't a terrible delivery, wasn't scrappy, wasn't any, it just was targeted to the wrong player. Our structure up forward held up really well. We transitioned the ball really well. The midfield got the ball up there really well. We actually locked it up there pretty well. But our kicks inside 50 almost uniformly went to the player that it shouldn't have gone to. Went to Stengel in a couple of 2v1s. Went to
Mm.
Hawkins out wide in a pack when he had, it was I think it was Dempsey at one point, and he's a fantastic player, awesome. And 9 times out of 10 he probably doesn't make this choice ever again. But he had like 3 players streaking on his left on a switch, either edge of the 50, just into the 50, or even another player, I think it was Holmes coming around the outside for a hand pass or something. And instead he kicked it long into a pack with Hawkins and Cameron, and they were outnumbered. It was like Hawkins, Cameron, and Stengel, and about 5 or 6 DWS players. It was just that like putting the cart before the horse, like going goal, goal, goal. I've got to get it up there, and acting like we had 30 seconds when we had 20 minutes. And it was literally about 15 times in that last quarter where you went, and this isn't to call anyone stupid or anything. It's very easy to watch from the televised angle, and a lot of people are doomsaying it, like, oh, this is terrible. But it's actually not. It's actually pretty easy to fix. This is vision that they can show these players, and just go, just look up, just look a little further. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
yeah, and there's about 15 times when you rewind it and you kind of go, there's like a more than significant chance that if the ball is kicked adequately to one of those other players, there's a mark and a shot. You know, maybe we drop half of them. That's seven marks inside 50. You know, like, and then maybe we only
Yeah.
convert 2 of those. That's still 2 goals, and we've won the game. So it felt really frustrating, and it felt like GWS were just owning us, owning the air, owning the territory, just like they were an impenetrable wall. But we really just made the wrong call under pressure multiple times with the excitement, blood pumping in the ears, and that to me is a good thing, because you go, we did everything else right, and next time you just hopefully make some of those calls, not all of them, not every time, but a couple of those calls go the right way. And suddenly you've got a really good look at a few goals instead of just turning it over to their defenders constantly, or another stoppage in their forward 50, and they have time to get back and structure up. So yeah, as I said, that was the end of the game, so it'd be good to look at how we got there. But it's just something that was really fresh in my mind, was kind of watching it, and it was really cathartic to go, it was all there. It's all there. It wasn't that last quarter was brilliant. It was just a couple of kicks, to a different player, switch it, kick it a bit shorter, just something, and it was there. So I think that was encouraging to me.
Yeah, the pieces are all there. It's just the players just aren't experienced enough to go, oh, I can take 2, 3, 5 seconds, a little bit longer to look up, and pass it a bit better. But
Yeah.
there's so much
And
pressure on at that
pressure,
time of the
yeah.
game. It's you're thinking of time. You think time's going so much quicker than it is, and you're just like, we've got to get inside 50. Just got to get in there. Hawkins, Cameron, Neil, they're going to mark it and they're going to slot a goal. And then it doesn't happen. Like, oh shit. And
Yeah.
then you go again, and same thing happens again. It's to another player, and as you said, it's such easy thing that you can sort out over time. It's not going to be fixed next week, obviously, because you can't just go, well, this situation, when it happens, this exact situation happens next week, just take those few seconds and look up and pass it to that guy instead. It's going to take a while for players to be able to process that through while they're going at full speed, running away from opposition, time against them. The crowd's building up, adrenaline's rushing through you. But it's as you said, it's time. It's going to be experience. It's exciting. I was listening today. This is probably the youngest Cats midfield I've seen the Cats play for a long time. Like, when was the last time we didn't have Dangerfield, obviously no Selwood, no
Cam
Guthrie,
Guthrie.
yeah, no Stanley, no Duncan was there. Like, it's pretty young midfield going against probably some of the more experienced midfields over the last few weeks in terms of, like, playing together, playing games together, years playing football. So if this is the Cats' worst football going up against premiership favourite teams like Port Adelaide should be a premiership favourite team. Melbourne's a premiership favourite team. Gold Coast a finals bound team this year and building. The Giants were a premiership favourite team, and we're losing. Apart from the Gold Coast Suns game, we're losing by less than 10 points. And if we're playing terribly horrible football where all these young guys should be dropped, shouldn't be playing again for a few weeks. We need to bring in the kids. We need to bring all these other players in that we've got hidden somewhere. Then it's not that bad. As you said,
And
we're in a pretty good position at the moment that we can build for the future.
especially because the evidence of it going right was there. Like,
Yeah.
our inside 50 efficiency is awful overall because of that last quarter. But prior to that, we were actually very efficient inside 50. And so, like you said, John, it's the pressure. And it's just the pressure getting them, because it was the very players that have been doing it correctly, 10 minutes ago before 3/4 time, that we're now no longer doing it correctly. And I think it, like, to get a bit, I don't know, not out in the weeds, but a bit overly flowery, maybe. Like I think it's people talk about system. Oh, the system's breaking down, blah blah blah. And I kind of feel like with the young players, and this is with most young players, but I think it's very evident with Geelong because we are so culture based and we are so system based that there's the difference between something being systematic versus it being systemic. And so at the moment with the young guys, it feels systematic, which is to me, this is the way I'm feeling about interpreting it, is the young guys are following the system. They know the system, they've learnt it, and they're operating according to the system. But that means it's still surface level. So when push comes to shove
Mhm.
and the pressure's on, it's up here. They've got to think about it. Whereas once with Duncan, with even players like Tom Stewart, it's systemic, which is to say that they themselves are part of the system. They don't have to think about it. They're not learning and following the system. They are the system. They are a part of the machine, and that's kind of what it was like. Jai Clark did some beautiful inside 50s. Oliver Dempsey did some
Yeah.
beautiful inside 50s. And then in that last quarter, it was almost like we'd played so well in the third quarter that we were more focused on smashing them than we were about actually just winning. like we were just thinking sheer volume and like, oh, we're just going to get so many goals instead of just thinking it through, kick another one like we did even in the first quarter. The way we got those 3 goals from very similar spots from outside 50. And then in the third quarter and throughout the game in general, we're getting a lot of goals kicking to the lead to Tom Hawkins out in his pocket. We're getting, even if not goals, he missed 1 or 2. Like we're getting shots on goal, and suddenly you stop doing that. So it's that really like though we were getting goals in a very mathematical and provable way, and then we just stopped doing that. We moved completely away from that system. And again, it's because to me, they were, the young guys understandably are operating systematically. They're trying to be a part. They're trying to learn the system and operate accordingly. And with time, they'll just become part of the system, and it will now be systemic within them, and they will be systemic within the system.
And as you said, it's
So that makes
happening at the moment. And
Yeah,
it
well,
and sometimes the system breaks down, and when that happens, the opposition can get a flurry of goals on like they have against us. But as you said, the system foundations are there. It's just about building that up for the 4 quarters. And as I said, if we're losing games by less than 10 points and we're giving ourselves every opportunity to win these games against high quality oppositions, then I think people are just chucking the baby out with the bath water a bit too soon and having a bit of a freak out. Just
and
chill,
it's okay.
take a deep breath.
Yeah, like it is disappointing, but
Oh yeah,
as
definitely.
I think it's his name on Twitter might be Maxwellian or something. He put up a good post saying, 2022 we were 7-4 after 11 games. Now what I will grant, and the reason why people are more upset is that it's been 4 in a row that we've won. Sorry, that we've lost. We've won 7 on the trot, then we've lost 4 on the trot. I think that's confirming for a lot of people their narrative about the Cats. They've won a lot of games, but are they any good? They've hit this part of the schedule. They've lost games. If we'd peppered, win, loss, win, loss, for the first 11 weeks, I don't think people would be as sort of panic stations about it. And I get it. Like context does matter. It's not, you can't just flippantly say, well, we're 7-4 this year, just like we were in 2022 and not apply some context. Like there is a slightly more concerning context. You've lost 4 matches in a row, and there's been some very similar trends to how you've lost. But like you chaps are saying, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I find the Cats a really deceiving team in terms of like how our list kind of profiles. I think people look at it and go, we've got so many established stars, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yes, you do in some spots. You do in terms of Tom Stewart is pretty established, veteran player. You could look at a Mitch Duncan, you look at a Tom Hawkins, a Jeremy Cameron, and you sort of go around the field, but there is so much youth currently sprinkled through the team. Like there were times on the weekend where you had Toby Conway rucking, who's in, I think, his third year at the club, and would have played less than 10 games, I think, or less than a dozen games at AFL level. You've got Tanner Bruin, who is in pretty good form, is a younger player, and I think he's good, but he's up and down. Like I think probably his first and his last quarter were really good, and sandwiched in between, he kind of went missing. Jai Clark, very similar. As you said, Johnny, Max Holmes, he gets a lot of the football, maybe still not using it as well as you'd like him to, etc. Like there's so much development going on for such big chunks of our list. I wanted to put this to you, chaps, though, because this is something, as I said, I listened to the second half on the radio because I couldn't get the stream to work. Something I noticed in the first half was that there were so many moments where it was like I was listening and it was like, the Giants kick down the line and they find a mark. And it was sort of like Tom Stewart or Sam DeConing were just like half a second late with a spoil or an intercept. And ball would be loose and the Giants would be the first to it. And they'd have space enough to get a hand pass away. The second half, when I was listening on the radio, it'd be Giants kick down the line and Tom Stewart comes from nowhere to get a spoil on it. The ball hits the deck and it's a Cats player that emerges with it. It looks like the Giants are going to break clean of congestion. Oh no, ripping tackle from Brad Close. What changed for you? Was it like an effort thing? Was it an endeavor thing? Intent? Was positional? What made that happen?
I would say it was more intent. Like the intent was there in the second quarter. Like it was there, it just wasn't fully there. There's just those fundamental skills were just not quite there in that second quarter. Where the tackles, they'll lay a tackle, Giants will break it really easily, or as Sam said, they'll just soccer it off the ground, travel 30 meters straight to a Giants player, and they'll mark it, and then go back and slot kick it inside 50. And it was just that, as the Giants say, it's that orange tsunami happened where it just overwhelms you. And I think that's what happened in that second one. It just got so overwhelmed with how quickly Giants were able to move it inside their 50 that they weren't able to set up, get the structure going. But I think that second half was able to just go, right, that was that. Let's just calm the head, clear the head, forget about it, get our structure back. And I think they're just able to get back in their own mind that, yeah, they're good players. We know what we're doing. We know what the structure is. We know what the system is. We'll go back to the basics. And as soon as they did, they really started to, as you said, play the game the way it should be played. And they're just able to use that intent a lot more focused and cleaner as well, where they're able to lay those tackles, able to get those intercept marks going and playing off each other as well. There was a lot more of that team effort got around the ball. Where I felt like in that second one, it was very individual focused, and there was also those moments where a Giants player had the ball and he'd be surrounded by three Cats, and he'd just pop a handball over the top, and away they go. In the second half, they weren't able to pop that handball over the top and get that easy outlet. It was always under immense pressure, and it was just that system got back to where it should be. Where it's just like, if that guy's got it, it's like at social soccer, where you start the first half, everyone's just running around, headless chooks, trying to get the ball, and you're like, there's this whole ground that we can use. There's all this space, all these open players that they can just get to really easy. Spread out, play on your man, do your job, play the system. And once they did that, as I said, they looked miles better. And they were able to pressure, able to tackle, able to intercept, get the ball inside 50, get those clearances working, getting inside 50s working. The players looked confident and we nearly got the win. But yeah, it was just that system breakdown that hurt us the most.
I wonder if too, like I'm just thinking about like why isn't that change happening on the field? like as quickly as maybe it used to. Like I don't remember, and we'll probably get into it a little bit in the Patreon section in terms of giving up big runs of goals. I don't remember this happening so much a couple of seasons ago, but then I think about who's not out there, and it's like Dangerfield's not out there, Cam Guthrie's not out there, Joel Selwood's not out there, Isaac Smith's not out there. You know, there's like 4 really calm, experienced heads that were in this side not that long ago. And now the players that are, you know, coming in to play those roles are like Jai Clark, you know, say for Dangerfield, Max Holmes in for Isaac Smith. You've got Tanner Bruin trying to recreate Joel Selwood's impact. Like, I think there's something to be said that it does take a little bit longer for things to get turned around when you don't have those people out there who know what should be happening. Like, okay, this has occurred now where they've kicked a couple of goals. Let's get on top of this quick and shut it down. Let's play a bit of possession footy. It's really important here. Danger or Selwood goes in, wins a clearance, gets it out. We maintain possession for a bit and then counter attack. At the moment, it feels to me like it snowballs. It just gets into everyone's head, and all of a sudden it's totally out of control. I think you saw it in the Port game, definitely. I think you almost saw it in the Carlton game at the end, but we were able to steady. You definitely saw it, I thought, against GWS, and obviously in the Suns game. There was a horrific stretch across the second and third quarters. But Sambo, before we get into votes, I want to hand pass a specific question to you about the clearance stuff, because Twitter's been a fuel with it. It's been a light with it. What's your take? What's your perspective on how bad do you think the clearance work is? How you know, whether you want to talk in general, whether you want to talk about in this game specifically, do you think, yeah, just your thoughts on that? How bad was the clearance work by the guys around the stoppage? Did they improve anything by the end of the game? Figure some things out. What's your feeling?
Well, I mean, I don't. I mean, even if you just want to go with the stats, like I don't think that clearance. We only got beaten by what 7. We're we were we're just about on our season average. Um, we had more clearances than the Suns' season average, so they were way off. Um,
Mm.
you know, like they were way up on their season average, so they had a good day of it. I don't want to blame the ruck. I've talked about it before that, you know, rucking's not really an art form that I know a lot about, but you know, when you get beaten by more than 20 in the hitouts, that's tough.
Yeah.
Like it's tough to blame the midfield when you're losing the hitouts by that big of a differential.
I will
And
just say that turns up the ruck. Sorry, I was just saying that.
yeah,
I say that they're saying that Briggs is like I think nearly 10 kilos heavier than Conway. And like that. That's a big difference, especially now that the rucks can, you know, grab onto each other and wrestle each other off away from like the area. When you're giving away a little bit of weight, that does factor into it. And also, Conway's young, first year rucking.
yeah, and even Blix, I thought had a pretty rough go of it. Probably
Mm.
like when they put him in there, I would like. Uh, I think he's a pretty good, pretty handy ruckman. Like, you know, I think he's done all right when we've thrown him in there, but I think he only got 4 hitouts in the end, and he did the most of the ruck work for a while there. So like, not blaming him, and like John said, there's certain
Mm.
physical disadvantages that are tough to overcome, especially, you know, without the experience to kind of teach yourself how to use your body and how to use your opponent's body if they're a bit bigger than you. So it was a pretty rough day at the office as far as the hitouts. Um, and even when we did get the hitouts, I don't have the hitouts to advantage stat here, because it's never on.
8 to 4, I think it was.
Yeah,
8 to Briggs and 4 to Conway.
and I feel like 8 is pretty harsh. Actually, it looked like a lot more than that to me. But I guess I don't know how
Yeah,
they're
sure.
defining to advantage versus not to advantage. But I don't think the clearance work is that bad. The center clearances, I think, um with the 666 and all that kind of stuff. Like I think without Dangerfield, we still don't. And no Guthrie. Not that Guthrie's been lighting it on fire when he's in there, but there's a certain element of I think with the elements we've got in there, I think it's getting overlooked how well we're actually doing. People
Yeah.
want to talk about how bad the midfield is doing in the center, but we're actually holding on reasonably well. And I think it's probably no surprise though that like outside of the center, our clearances, just in stoppage clearances, we actually won. Like when it moves up or down a bit, and you've got some of those more experienced players, like you go up forwards, and we've got maybe Close, Cameron, Myers, Hawkins, Rowan when he's in. We've got all these players around it, and then you go down back, and you've got if the stoppage is down back, you've suddenly got Tom Stewart, Jack Henry, Kolajasny, Duncan. These guys are the ones around it. So I think it's obvious that midfield is still finding its way, but they're not an untenable situation, because I think we've got a blueprint from earlier in the year of how well it can work. We know with danger in, obviously that's a pretty slap it on band-aid kind of fix. And the rest of the guys can come up around it as well. But I also think that the structure down back, like I know we want to get votes, but I think the compounding issue really is center clearances, like the center stoppages and hit outs leading the clearances is a weakness at the moment. I don't think it's as absolutely diabolically problematic as a lot of people make out, because I think at certain points of the game we're a lot better than other stages. That kind of shows you that there is wiggle room there. We're working on stuff, and Atkins moved up. When we moved Atkins up a little bit later in the game, as we've said before, even earlier in this very podcast, up higher, further up the ground. Get him in the center, please. God. But I think the compound issue is the whole Stewart thing. Not to blame it on, they've tagged our acting captain or whatever, but that is having a real ripple effect in terms of the way they're tagging Stewart, taking him out of the game. And he tried to tag Green, who in this game instead. I don't know if that was a Chris Scott decision or if that was a Tom Stewart decision to go, well, I'll go up on someone else and lose my tag that way. But instead kind of got double teamed, and it meant that when they had the ball, he was now trying to deal with two players. And when we had the ball, Tom Stewart wasn't able to take the game because he had two players on him. And I'm pretty sure it was in the second half when they moved away from that, and Tom Stewart went back to just being like, I'll just play my game. And I think that was the better choice. But that is really causing a bit of chaos now. I think when Stewart's beyond someone and some other players on him, and there's a bit of confusion about whose man it is. Like I think Jack Henry and Sam DeConey are copying the heat online and in the media. But I think it's not just it's not just them as footballers. It's the way backline is operating, which is just completely out of sync. And that's generally the the causality there is the team looks bad and the defense is operating inefficiently, and then we kind of get that worked out, and suddenly we're looking pretty good again. So it seems to just take us about a half at the moment of football to figure out how to do it. And so it'd be nice if they could do it from the start, but I think there's just a real, and so when we're lacking in the middle a little bit, when we're the ball up in the center bounce particularly is something that we're probably at best like 64 against, that we're like, we could come away with this here. And when we do come away with it, we're efficient and we use it, and that's been the model all year. But we're coming away with it slightly less with that Dangerfield. And as we talked about before, when it comes into the crunch, we're using it a little less efficiently when we do get it. But basically, they get the set clearance, and it goes down there, and the backline's not operating efficiently, and they get a goal. And where does it go after a goal? It goes to a bloody centre bounce. And so that's that vicious cycle of the backlines getting dejected and annoyed and frustrated, and they don't know what's happening, and they're trying to in real time sort it out, because they can't just pause the game and go, wait, this is what we got to do. So I don't know if that word salad makes a lot of sense, but the short answer is the midfield is young, and they are definitely not at the level of a lot of opponents that we're playing. But we have got a real blueprint here from earlier in the year of how we can use this midfield to efficiently get scores on the board, which at the end of the day is what we need. But we need the back line to be working efficiently for those turnovers, that transitional play. And when that's not happening, we're just putting our midfield under increasing amounts of strain and stress, which is putting the back line under amounts of stress and strain. And it just runs on for a quarter or two before we can reset and figure out what we're doing.
If there was ever a case for wanting to be able to call a timeout in the AFL, it would have been roughly midway through that second quarter. Johnny, let's get into some votes. Tell me who played well. Tell me why they played well. Tell me how
No
they
one
got
played
your
well.
votes.
All the players getting dropped.
Drop them all.
Placed
Drop them
with
all.
the AFL side.
Bricklayers
I'm
won
giving
it all.
I'm giving one vote to Tyson Stengel. He's just continuing to play exceptional football. Definitely one of in the top 3 Cats players the last few weeks. Looking really honest up forward. Had probably one moment that he would like to take back where he had it inside 50. And just tried to either be a little bit too tricky or tried to be a little bit crafty and just got, just one of those moments where a Giants player was on the ground and he was able to grab his jumper and tackle him. Probably like that moment back. But apart from that, I think Tyson Stengel played a really clean, efficient game. Got us right back into in that third and fourth quarter with some. Was it the fourth? Yeah, that fourth quarter where he got a couple of really nice, great, fantastic goals. Nearly got us over the line as well. So he's getting my 1 vote, giving 2 votes to Max Holmes. Same as Tyson Stengel. He's been playing it really great, efficient footy. Still making some small kicking errors. But I tell you what, once he's cleaned up those kicking errors and sometimes decision making, he's going to be a bloody fantastic player, exciting player to watch. Glad he's at the Cats for another 4 years because he's going to become a superstar. And when he's able to get those kicks up to 80, 90% efficiency in a game and get that decision making a bit more cleaner and clearer, he's going to tear teams apart. He's going to break teams' hearts as well. And he's got a fantastic kick going inside 50 and a booming kick. He can kick goals from outside 50. So it's not going to be long before he's going to be leading this team in some major ways. And I'm giving my 3 votes to Zach Tui. I thought this was a classic Zach Tui game where a little bit of pressure is on him from fans and play himself as well. And he put it all to bed in this game. Like, played a 4-quarter game. Like other players, he made some errors that he'd go, should be making those errors. But apart from like 2, 3, 4 errors, I thought it was another fantastic game. And one again where he was a driving force in the Cats getting back into the team, into the game, and nearly stealing another victory.
I love it, Johnny. I am very similar. I had 1 vote to Zach Tui. Thought he played excellently. I think that's the value of having mature, aged players on your list instead of just clearing them all out. Zach Tui might not be in your best 23 every week, but as we talked about, he's definitely in your best 30 every week. And it's nice to have a player like Zach Tui to call in to play games like this, to play games like against Carlton where he slotted those 3 really important goals. So Zach Tui with 1, Tyson Stengel with my 2 votes. Would be a candidate, I think, for Player of the Month when we do that in our month in review after the Richmond game. He's just been outstanding this season, I think. I reckon he'll rack up quite a few votes in the Cargie Greaves medal at the end of the season as well. And I'm giving my votes to my 3 votes to Max Holmes. I think he is the logical heir apparent to Patrick Dangerfield in terms of getting him once we can take the burden off him down at half back. And I reckon Lawson Humphreys is a player that could possibly do the role. I think O'Sheen Mullen's a player that could possibly do that in future. Get Max Holmes up around the footy. He is an absolute gun, and I'm so glad we've got him signed up. Sambo, what about yours?
I just had it absolutely blasted out of my head when you said my name. Forgotten who I've got. My who did I give my one vote to? It was Atkins. That's who I gave my one vote to. I think, yeah, again, I think he's doing the best he can at in that sort of halfback that they keep kind of stranding him at. I think he's adding some strings to his bow down there. But when they do give him a chance in the middle, yeah, I think he's still such a beast. And we need to unleash him earlier and more often. I think he had team high tackles, I think 9. Just quite a few disposals for him too. Like, he's not a guy that racks up a lot of disposals, but he had quite a few with, and his disposal efficiency wasn't too shabby either. And he also, I think he was also 4 or 5 score involvements, I think. So I just thought it was a really good game from him. And, something that we haven't mentioned really is how good our pressure became. It started okay and it dropped off a lot in the second quarter. It was that, John sort of talked about this. It was that aimless pressure that kind of like everyone just charges that guy because he's got the ball, and then it just pops over the top. And so there was a lot of really sort of wayward, useless pressure. But once we dialed that in, like when, I know the whole pressure rating thing's a bit of a wank, but when they did bring that up, Geelong was literally at the top. You could, like, the highest you could be. They couldn't put the meter any higher. And I think Tom Stewart is a big, Tom Atkins is a big part of that. The way when they moved him around and he let him off the lead a little bit. My 2 votes are going to Max Holmes for all the reasons you guys have said. The glimpses of what he could be if they can just find a way to, a bit like Atkins, put him where he belongs. And then my 3 votes are going to Zach Tui as well. All the things you guys said, but the only thing I'd really add is he was one of the few players that I think was playing well when the team wasn't. He, like you said, John, he was instrumental in getting us back in it. Like you said, Jake, he's just such a vital component of that team. But I really liked his game pretty much the whole way. Even when we were up against it, he was still doing good things against the flow of play. And I think that's the sign of a really solid player, one that doesn't rely on the momentum of the team around them all the time. And he kind of, statistically might not be a 3 vote game, I don't know, but just for my mark, it was about, the game was maybe not even half done, and I had already dog-eared him as being my man of the match. So, and it never changed. Stengel should have got some votes, but can't give them to everyone every week.
Got something else.
It's good to have a bit of
it'd be pretty hard to look.
Good to have a bit of spread.
That's right.
Need the spread.
Got to have the spread. It'd be hard to go past Zach Tui with, in a game where we're talking about clearances and he wins 6 more than any other player, 24 touches, kicks a goal. People might point to turnovers. He had 5 of those, but, Cameron had 6, Dempsey had 6, Tanner Bruin had 8. Generally, players who have more of the footy do have more turnovers. He had 3 clangers, which was pretty average for Geelong's side. Tom Atkins, 38 pressure acts. I thought it was pretty impressive to lead not only the team, but the game. So, yeah, there's your votes. We are now going to go over and do the Chaps Chat Stats for our Patreon subscribers. So if you want to get that part of the show, remember to go on and start your free trial, get extended podcasts to get VFL men's and women's coverage. I've done my recap of the VFL men's game. They crushed the Giants by 10 goals down at Kidinia Park. James Willis, Ted Closey, Mitch Hardy. Some very exciting signs there. So go on over. You get early access to Paul's interview episodes. Ben's doing Wednesday news wraps. There's a lot to get into over there. So make sure you go and sign up and have a crack at a free trial. But chaps, that is all from us here. So we'll see you in a few days for a preview pod of Cats v Tigers. But until next time, go Cats.
Go Cats.
Go Cats.